Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the block 4 of the PBM course. As we enter into the final block where we are looking into the very high level involvement of the subject on brand management. Today we are going to focus on unit 13, which is basically enhancing brand equity. Brand equity we had already dealt earlier in one of the sessions where we talked about how a brand can basically, in terms of its value, can be a competitive force, not only in terms of the customer involvement, but in terms of how it can help the firm leverage in the long run. Today we are looking into the various designs that goes into brand building programs. We'll also be looking into how to enhance the brand equity further so that one can leverage on it as we move around. We will also look into the various things that goes into leveraging the brand equity. What are the levels that we need to look into for leveraging brand equity? Right from brand elements to product brand differentiation, the positioning strategies, the kind of linkages that the brand achieves over a period of time in terms of the emotional bonding and the functional bonding with the customer. And of course, when you look into the high-end involvement of the customer in promoting with the rising brand equity. And once a brand equity is established and you can leverage on it, it will accrue lot of benefits to the firm. So that is why most brand managers are focusing on building brands right from the basic platform in terms of designing the right kind of brand elements to communicating it and offering the values to the customers that customers are looking for, associating the right kind of attributes or the brand associations with the target customers so that they can realize the real worth of the brand. When we talk about brand equity, we obviously look into two parameters: brand awareness and brand identities. And when we launch any particular brand in the marketplace, the DNA of the brand is what the identity is all about. And when we position it, it helps to effectively in our communication channels, it helps to build the brand equity. We had looked at the ACRS model, which looked at the various sources which can be considered as assets for building brand equity. They are the brand awareness, perceived quality, brand associations, loyalty factors, and other proprietary assets. Now, like proprietary assets like your trademarks, the registered slogans or whatever, the legal aspects linked to the brand. But if you look into these facets, right from brand awareness to brand loyalty to the perceived quality, into the brand association, everywhere you find that there is a certain amount of involvement with the consumers so that it renders a positive impact in terms of the equity. It helps to build the equity and further enhance the equity by a proper integration through perceived values and brand associations and as well as loyalty factors. When you look into loyalty, it is basically a outcome of the kind of value that the consumers perceive or consumers accept with respect to the usage of the brand. So these feedback, these helping not only establishing the brand equity, but also furthers it in terms of managing it and registering or enhancing it to a larger extent by connecting with the consumers at an emotional level. So when you look into the successful brand strategy would be the one is one which you are advocating, whatever brand you are advocating and whatever you are talking about the brand, that really resonates with the market or with your consumers so that they perceive larger benefits. The value to the consumer, the company is such that, okay, once you are establishing with the consumers, your consumer base is increasing. And once the consumer base is increasing, it impacts your revenues. Obviously, it gives you a positive rub-off in terms of your competitive, in terms of your fighting back your competition, as well as in the business front. Shareholders also look into the performance dimensions of the brands through how the brand is creating more value and what is the equity status of the brand in the marketplace. Now, in order to, merely when we talk in terms of achieving the connectedness with the consumers, which we call as a resonance, one has to also look into the salience aspects, because you may be aware of brands, you may recognize it, you may recall it, but does that trigger at the point of purchase, whenever you are making a shopping decision, or when you are on a purchase cycle, when you're purchasing any purchasing activity, does that really ring a bell, or are you able to achieve the top of the mind awareness? Then that becomes a kind of a salience dimension that one would see in terms of whether the brand is actually converting in terms of some kind of a action from the consumers to get associated with the brand. One has to also understand that it is not just to be a brand name is not only just to be remembered, but it also has to be relevant to the product category that you are advocating, and relevant to the customer needs as well. Mere recognition of a brand or a logo, yes, that is fine, that identification is must, but does that really relate to the consumer having a right kind of knowledge about the brand? If you see, if you in the previous sessions we talked about the brand knowledge, which is basically built through your brand awareness and your brand associations or your brand image. That happens primarily because if your brand awareness that it should go down to consumption should lead to an image dimension, so that you can perceive certain benefits that are accruing to you. So when we look into brand building exercise, one has to be very clear about that this is the highest level of achievement that you can achieve in when you talk about the resonance dimension, so that the brand would always be in sync with the consciousness of the consumers. A strong brand, of course, needs to be loved and respected by the consumers, because until unless they have the familiarity, they have the affection of the consumer, the brand connection, the emotional connection is there, and love is an emotion, right? So whenever you're talking about the relationship factor in case of a brand, we are looking into how much does a consumer value the brand or respect the brand or love the brand. And if they do that, obviously it is a win-win situation. In order to look into a good branding strategy, we have to look into the foundation of how we build the brands. The first thing that we need to look into is the authenticity. Brands, when you talk in terms of the promises, whatever they are talking about, in terms of their communication, should be very authentic, should be very truthful. They should not be giving any kind of puffery into it. So if you are able to be honest and authentic in terms of what the brand stands for, if you're saying my brand is able to remove the, let's say the cream, let's say the cream brand talks in terms of fairness. One fact is understood that fairness depends upon the melanin pigment in the skin. So when you're promising that my brand XYZ is trying to make you fair, one has to understand that it brings a kind of a question now, right? One has to see that actually the brand is performing on those parameters. Yes, it could be a temporary issue, but the consumer should perceive or should see for themselves that it is achieving. Similarly, when you talk in terms of Bonvita having that it increases your IQ, it increases your stamina, it increases your mental alertness. Yes, these are benefits which everybody would look forward to when they are drinking a brand like energy drink like Bonvita. But how much of that is actually happening? So at the test point of time, one has to really see to it that whatever promises the brand is giving in terms of their pitching, while we are pitching the brand, it has to really deliver on those counts. So today, if you say that a bank is saying that I'm giving 24/7 kind of service. The Citibank says the city never sleeps. Now, what if you go and find out that at a certain point of time, the city services are not, the Citibank services are not available, whether it's an offline or an online format, right? Then that is absolutely, it would fall apart. When banks say that we value your relationship, So when you say value the relationship, and when you go and check at the reception, you find that the first thing that a lot of questions are raised, and you are asked questions in so many ways that it leaves you completely disinterested, or creates more confusion, or creates a discomfort level. So even if you harp about the relationship factors, it does not get translated down to the ground realities. So brands have to be very, very authentic in terms of their brand. They have to be very careful about what they're promising. If we talk about, we'll take some few cases like the case of Patanjali. Not that before Patanjali there were not any herbal brands in the marketplace. We had Dabur, which had already come. We had Vico Vajratanti, Vico Labs, which had introduced various Ayurvedic combinations in the oral category, in the oral care category. But when Patanjali came, they tried to disturb them. I would not say disturb, but I would say that yes, they products which were yes fundamentally very strong, and of course they disrupted the usual flow of and created a larger consciousness with the health parameter, because obviously of its promoter, Baba Ramji was is a very well known accepted guru in case of yoga. So whenever he advocated certain things, it had a plus point to it, and obviously their products did have. But in 2020, when there was a CSE report that the honey which were brought out by them did have some syrup, which they were saying they were naturally derived and all that. When that gets reported, in today's market, your advertisements are not the only very means to communicate. There are also various other articles, journals, media outlets where your brand is getting written or getting evaluated. So when our reports are being collected across the markets, which are being conducted by the government, and then when these findings are made public, you are really caught napping. The brand may be caught napping if they are if they are not able to convince the customers. So one has to be very careful about these things. So yes, does the brand take a beating if they are not authentic? They do. Coming to there's another case of where we're talking in terms of Dove. Lux is talking about beauty. Dove is also talking about beauty. But the way they connect in terms of beauty, we say that, okay, in case of Lux, we talk about it's highly oriented towards the celebrities which are endorsing. So the celebrities are in, so the understanding is that if the celebrities is using and they look so good, so should you be. How effective is that? Well, we don't know, but then the brand has been able to resonate with most of the people, and maybe it was functionally not attending to that, but it was emotionally attending to the aspirational levels of the people. So maybe Lux is an accepted brand in that sense. But if you look into a brand like Dove, which is again offered by the HUL, it is talking about a soap which talks about beauty, but it is basically keeping your moisturizing content in terms of skincare. So over a period of time, they also started, and you will never find any celebrity endorsing the Dove. So what did they do when Dove entered the market? They wanted to create this testimonial approach where they said that there's a beauty in everybody, whatever be the color, whatever be the origin, whichever part of the world you are in. Beauty has to be relished, has to be appreciated, has to be recognized, and have to be lived with, and we must enjoy that. So when you talk in terms of those kind of parameters, the real truth about beauty was found in one of the surveys in 2004, where they said that the only 2% of a global report said that 2% of the people, actually of the women folk, consider themselves to be beauty. The rest, they did not feel that they're beauty. But Dove, in their campaign, there was a campaign which I would like to refer to, which is called Campaign for Real Beauty, where they, in 2004, they brought out that the differences in physical appearances should be celebrated and accepted. Because yes, no two individuals are the same. They said that yes, we must appreciate every kind of beauty that is available to us. So they created a campaign wherein they roped in people from multiple, which we construe as beauty, from various walks of life, and then they did not have any of these models who are decked with what do you call the cosmetics, or they are put up in a manner where it will be more appealing, visually appealing. So mostly, they were without any kind of makeup and all that. As they are, they were brought in and they created an event where they talked about what is the real beauty is all about. Of course, such a campaign did the competitors obviously did have criticism, saying that okay, they were just talking, doing a lip service. So another part of authenticism is that if you are doing just lip service and you're not delivering, that also walks backwards. It really gets rejected at the consumer level. So to factor in this, they brought in a lot of people to people connect in terms of their effort to tell that the beauty is differentiated, it can be appreciated, it needs to be accepted. So they had a campaign where they brought it on television, they brought people, they started discussing, they had a lot of fashion photographers who were also asked to photograph these people and put them into their campaigns, and they were being able to redefine the concept of beauty. And what did it say? It says something. Please allow me to look forward to what they were talking about. They managed to help women realize their beauty potential, whatever their age, body shape, and skin tone or hair color. So to appreciate everybody as they are, as a unique person, and understand the beauty behind it, it cuts across races, it cuts across skin tones, it cuts across any kind of racism and all that. You are basically celebrating beauty. So this is one thing, and they have been able to prove that again and again. And today, that's what says how Dove is well established or accepted by the people as, yes, I am beautiful according to what I am. So there is some kind of a personalization, acceptance and recognition that is built into the fabric of the Dove and the equity, of course. So that sounds more authentic. That sounds resonating with the people, acceptance from the people. Otherwise, if your brands are not authentic, they will be rejected outright. The next most important is that whatever promises are being made, is it a believable promise? That's why I was giving the example of the fairness cream. They say that, okay, the fairness, you will become fair. But the point is, after some point of time, if you stop the usage of the brand, again, you will revert back to what your skin type is. Because one fact is straight, is true in science, that you are born with a certain kind of a skin tone, a certain kind of melanin pigment. That is what it is going to stay until unless you have some kind of a disease like, leukoderma or something like that. Otherwise, you do not have permanent fairness. And of course, these are again genetics, the way their genetic works, the fairness or the color of the skin is depends on the parents, the genes that are coded, and what we inherit from our parents. So obviously, we are trying to reverse that. Is it a believable thing? So many of the fairness creams did flake a flag when it came to saying that. And of course, the word fair has been ridiculed and has been projected as racist. So many of these fairness creams have rebranded themselves as with fair and beauty or something on those lines. There are vegetable oils which talks about, like Sephora talks in terms of the heart. If you consume this, your heart rate will not get affected. Your heart will not get affected. You will not have any cardiac arrests, because understand, in India, cardiac arrests are a big threat to many of the kind of lifestyles that we have, the kind of dietary consumption that we have, the food that we eat. This has become a part and parcel of our problem, the pain points that people have. So whenever you are putting across a brand which talks in terms of health issues or health parameters, then that definitely grabs the attention. These days after COVID, we have been able to attract, many brands have been launched in terms of 3 parameters. One is the nutrition part, because nutrition is linked to the immunity. When you're looking at the health part, if you're putting something on the health part, that is likely to get some kind of a positive, acceptance in terms of belief of the consumer. Then comes the wellness, how well you are living your life. So when it talks to that, you're talking about diets and things like that. So a lot of forays have been made by the companies, but then those have to be believable. Companies like Google, Apple, BMW, whatever their products have been, time and again, consistently, they've been able to make claims which they are able to uh, offer and make the people realize that they are believable, right? And of course, it depends upon how the brand credibility is perceived, how the credibility is built, and how that impacts the perception of the brand in the minds of the consumer. So looking into what enhances the brand equity, we would look into certain levers of enhancing brand equity. So just crafting and launching a brand successfully is only the first step in the life of the brand. So you're creating a brand identity and you are launching it with a particular positioning stance, and then you are looking into, that's the first step. That's a part of part one. But if you have to move from being a good to a great brand and continuously provide value to the customer and to the stakeholders, one has to connect with the customer. That we already said that. So how, when in the brand building stage, when you are talking about enhancing brand equity, right from the point of selecting the elements that goes into the brand identity is of crucial importance. I would like to take this, the following steps in terms of building an effective brand strategy, where you can factor in the in terms of which is built on the brand foundations. Obviously, as I told you, they have to be authentic and believable, but then we also have to select and manage the right set of brand elements. We have already talked about brand elements like the name, the logo, the tagline, the music, the characters associated, the mnemonics which are associated. Those elements help like a signature, that okay, this is the one which helps in identification. It helps in also recognizing the brand, and the recall factor is faster. So having the right mix of brand elements is a very critical factor in terms of registering in the minds of the people. Then comes a question of what are you going to position it as? What are you going to offer with respect to your brand so that the brand promise is communicated effectively? So first of all, you talk about the brand promise. What is the image that you want to associate? And then communicate it across various integrated marketing communication. Everywhere the brand promise has to be consistent. It should not give any kind of a different kind of a image. While you're positioning also, we need to know that how you have your brand differentiated from your competitors to create proper points of differentiation and also point of parities. Then we look into how these products, these brands associate with the consumer. So when we're trying to offer it to the marketplace, obviously we have to ensure that these brand which we are offering to the marketplace, with the right kind of brand elements and the image, the kind of attributes we are talking about, they connect with the customers in terms of and create the right kind of association. Now, once the emotional connect has been established, we can advocate what the brand stands for, what the brand is all about, and that enhances the brand equity. So when we're looking into the brand elements, we should look into, obviously, we have already talked about it, but there are 6 criteria which Keller has identified in 2015 which are critical for deciding your brand elements. One, your brand element should be memorable so that it aids easy recognition and recall. Because we remember when we talked about promotion, we talked about the AIDA model, the attention, interest, desire, and action. So the attention part is considered that if it is memorable, obviously people can easily identify with it or it can recognize it. It has to be meaningful so that it becomes relevant to the consumers and help in the persuasion mode. And of course, it should be likable. It should create some kind of a fair acceptance on part of the consumer. So they should be likable and invoke a positive response. Be transferable, that tomorrow the brand is getting across different markets, the same kind of a image can be extended to other markets and it can be transferred from one market to the other market in terms of geographical terms. And of course, it should be adaptable. Any future use, that the product level, when I look into augmentation and the potential part, we also need to look into that should be possible to change according to the context in which the brand is evolving, so that the brand can engage more with the customers with what they are looking for. And last but not the least is, of course, the legal, the protection that we need in terms of the brand. So, if you look into elements, one of the very classic examples that of in co-branding efforts where Intel have been able to derive the kind of mileage in terms of that, whether it is important for a laptop or a desktop to have a Intel processor. You must have seen that the price of the laptop is also dictated by the processor that it has. And Intel has been able to, though it is an ingredient in that product, it does not really, the customer does not directly benefit from that, but it is an important component. And by through the co-branding efforts, Intel has been able to sensitize the consumer that if this particular chip is not there, a processor is not there, it is likely to impact the outcome, the processing speed, or the kind of work that the product can do. As a result, they give more weightage to it. Similarly, Amul Girl, which was a kind of character which was built out, which was created by the art director of Dakuna Associates, by Nisha Dakuna. And today, if you see that Amul Girl conveys what the brand stands for, and it's been able to update itself from time to time, bringing up, if you've seen the campaign of Amul, they bring up a lot of topical issues which happens in the world to give better relatability and connection with the concerned target audience. And of course, this is a product which basically which is used by everybody. So they bring up social issues or current affairs, which is a common interest to most of the people, and they've been able to cater to the audience interest levels and make these campaigns effective. Coming on to the next step in the levers, we talk about delivering brand promises and maintaining differentiation. See, when you are creating the brand elements, obviously the brand managers have to put in processes and systems in place to deliver the brand promise. For example, if I'm saying that McDonald's is available at every strategic locations, it's available at 1,000 stores, I must ensure that the sufficient effort has been put to put up those 1,000 stores to give effective coverage in the marketplace. If I'm saying that, okay, I'm opening up a new store in so and so time, you need to do that. If you're talking about like a Disney world, for example, we are talking about a particular film which are launched, or the Bollywoods, they talk in terms of the entertainment products that they come up with. They talk about the launch of a new new film on the occasion of Diwali or on the occasion of Eid. So when you do that, you have to, when that brand promise is being kept by those producers, they have to ensure that these brands actually get implemented at time. It calls for a lot of processes, a lot of systems to be put into place to make that thing happen. When you say that Starbucks is a kind of an experience, the Starbucks as a brand has to ensure that they are the right kind of people, the right kind of products which are available at the store, and the right kind of interaction with the consumers to give the brand experience. And of course, these are critical for ensuring that the brand promises are delivered and also maintained, because no two products can be the same, because it can only be same in terms of tangible, in terms of functional. But when it comes to usage, in terms of how it is being delivered, there can be differences. Obviously, companies like Amazon, they have not become a big brand just like that. They have invested in their platform through getting through some logistic partners in the way of ensuring that their delivery systems are well toned to the customer requirements. So when they say that your ETA, expected time of arrival of a particular product, is on XYZ date, it has to be calibrated according to that. Similarly, any logistics company, if you see, when you're sending a packet into international destination, most of the time they say we promise you so many hours within which it will reach. But at the same time, today, a customer is, for an exporter, let's say, who is sending his samples to his potential buyers across the globe, and they're using DHL services, and DHL services say that okay, so and so hours it is going to improve. It is not enough. They have to stay with the customer. And today we are giving consignment numbers, and it can be tracked on the GPS tracking system, help us to know exactly where the consignment is and when exactly that is getting delivered. And once the delivery is also, we also get a proof of the delivery, not only in form of a receipt, but today we get a notification. It's so technology is being used to augment the basically the experience. So a lot of processes and things are put into place to ensure that the brand promises are there. If you look into Apple, the phenomenal success of Apple has been primarily because they've uh, been able to promise people that yes, every year I'm going to give you a better product to you in terms of iPhone, and people wait for that particular thing to happen. Yeah, understand in today's competitive market, consumers have options, so they can always switch to the competitors. But in this case, because of their commitment, because of their kind of promises, because of their kind of past experiences that the company has, the brand has been able to deliver, the kind of impact it has is that today people wait for the new products or new brands which are launched from the market in the marketplace. Obviously, they relearn, research, learn, and then offer it in the marketplace. So that's something which one has to understand in terms of today, that if you want desirable results, you have to be in sync with what your customers are desiring from you, right? So for that, obviously, you need to have tools and techniques to understand the changing taste and preferences at what they are looking forward, which is relevant to them, and then you can factor it into your products. I would also like to talk about in order to ensure consistency, desirability, and differentiation, you have to not only support it with the systems, but it also has to be involved in terms of the experience level, how the customer is experiencing. That's being brought out by Taj Group of Hotels, where the Taj chain of luxury hotels, they talk about the Tajness, and they are trying to bring every element of the hotel in terms of the six pillars, just to note: nobility, sincere care, homage to local culture, sensorial journeys, pioneering spirit, and authenticity. So Taj Hotels, apart from being a luxury hotels, taxing all these kind of parameters for enhancing the consumer experience. According to the MD and CEO of Taj Hotels and Resorts, they said that, according to him, he says, I would like to quote, Tajness, they name it as a Tajness, is a brand promise, a philosophy, and a strategy. It actually a strategy that speaks about our operational excellence to all our shareholders, regardless of size of shareholding, to our guests, to our colleagues, to the environment, and to plan for developing, extending the footprint of Taj in the right places. And the Taj experience will focus on delivering a consistency in service, providing a taste of Indian tradition mixed with authentic local experiences. It will come to the guests through a set of signature rituals to guide their journey from the moment of arrival. So this raises the expectation that it talks about the brand philosophy. It talks about that Tajness is unique by these parameters, that it is very noble. It is, of course, it's delightfully Indian, but it also gives you the kind of service which is unparalleled, makes you feel that you are kind of a Maharaja. That's the luxury that is being treated for, you are being treated for. But it has its own unique rituals in terms of treating the customer, so the consumer who come to them and take care of their services. And of course, they talk in terms of operational excellence. But to give this kind of a consumer experience, they have put in resources and parameters to make it happen. Another example of consumer experiences can be given by the Airbnb. If you've seen the Airbnb concept, is a very interesting concept. We are talking in terms of how to, which is a kind of a offer which is countered to the hotels. Instead of spending so much on hotels, you can get the same feel by getting into an Airbnb services. So Airbnb offerings, they allow you to stay in in an apartment, enjoying home food locations. They can also give you home food if they want to, with variety of services which can be given. And they've been able to carve a unique experience for the customers anywhere across the globe. They don't have their own resources, but they take those. They don't have the resources in terms of infrastructure. They don't own the houses, but they take it on kind of a higher end kind of a thing, and then they ensure that the customer is able to, while they are browsing on the net, the kind of property that they want to be in, what during the time of vacation, when they want to go on a drive or when they want to on a holiday trip, and they factor in the requirements and customize it to their experience and to their requirements, and then track those experiences. And obviously, when customers put up their good experiences on the platform, it definitely it gives a lot of positive vibe into the brand itself. So, and also not only that, the company ensures that the properties are well photographed. They are giving a right range of taste and preferences, the variety that they need to offer to the discerning customers. So that's the kind of thing which has been packed in to give the customer experience a very strong acceptance, or a strong delightful experience to their consumers. Now, next comes is your desired association, building desired association, brand association, and customer engagement. As you can see, there have been various classic cases of how brands have utilized the situations to create differentiation, to create better brand association. A few things come to my mind is obviously the example of Taj Mahal. If you see, Taj Mahal was a tea which was offered by HUL, and it basically was built on to leverage on the old classic music and bring that era to this. So because Taj Mahal connotes a kind of a old legacy, so we wanted to bring that legacy into the brand. And of course, it was a tea, but at the end of the day, they roped in Zakir Hussain, the tabla player, to basically be a part of the campaign. And Wa Taj, which was basically a kind of expression that people were very well resonated with this campaign. Basically looked into when you look into the opulence, when you look into the kind of Taj Mahal as an aspirational brand, people would like to associate with the Taj Mahal, with all of the best that can be offered. They've been able to appeal to the music enthusiasts. That's why the music was such a strong part of the particular brand element. And the brand endorser also resonated with most of the music enthusiasts, people who are connoisseurs, people who looked into the best things in life. They wanted to enjoy not the tea alone, but the feel of what the brand carried forward. Very well executed. Another one is that the Daag Achhe Hain campaign by Surf. Okay, and you will find that this particular in 2005, the Surf Excel ads had chosen the protagonist as kids, where they said that it is quite natural for people to get dirty, right? So parents should not be feeling bad about it. And they said that Daag Achhe Hain, that means being dirty is okay. And if you see the commercial that came out, it talked about one thing, that most of the time when you talk about detergents, parents are very much concerned about how it is clean, how it is to be spotlessly clean. Because earlier, most of the detergents talked about how detergent should clean, it should be neat, it should be white, and all those kind of things, brightest, and so on and so forth. These kind of adjectives were used. But the first time they said that, listen, that the detergent is saying, listen, you're having stains, that is understood. That is something which is acceptable, which is very contrary. And that's where you're differentiating that, okay, so now how can this be done? Is it they as kids, so they took the ploy in terms of kids, they narrated the story from there, where they talk about very strongly that for any child to while returning or during their daily activities. Here they showed the children returning from the school, and somebody is getting, they are staining their clothes with mud and all that when they play around with mud and all that. So and but end of the day, the parent in this film does not get hassled. And they use the brand. Obviously, they say that if Surf Excel is there, you don't need to bother about whether the clothes are getting dirty or not. So Daga Chain, which was like a very interesting campaign, which had a very strong resonance with the way people accepted it. Cadbury's has been able to say that celebration of life. So they've been able to even talk about not only chocolates, but it's something else. So they've been able to also factor that into the brand association, that where we are talking about uh, chocolates are not necessarily only for consumption, but it's also for celebration of life. So the celebration of life campaign, which brought in Amitabh Bachchan at the forefront, they communicated you are appreciating people for their marks. Papu pass ho gaya, right? Papu, who eventually was failing, has passed. So obviously, these kind of campaigns do ring a bell when it comes to and they're able to differentiate themselves better and have a better connection. Coming on to building brand associations, we look into three levels. One is, of course, the product and the service design, including when you talk about product design, you're also looking at the packaging, the usability, the desirability parameters, and the imagery in and the messaging part. What kind of messages are you associating it, and what kind of image you want to create. And third is, of course, what are the activity plans that you have worked out. If you look into any brand, they would talk in terms of the product or the service design. The product is design is a very critical example. Let's say Apple, iPhone. The product design is unique. Every time they try to play around with something new to the marketplace, and as I was just now talking about the chocolates being promoted as sweets for or looking into occasion-based sweets, or moving from chocolates to dry fruits by Cadbury's to celebrate various festivals and so on and so forth. You'll find that the design itself gives a lot of Cadbury's has been able to do a lot of things in terms of for the Cadbury Dairy Milk brand, where it connotes with different kind of emotions that they are talking about, not necessarily in terms of consumption of a chocolate. One would say, well, okay, the chocolates taste good, that's good enough. But no, they have associated with various life incidents to do that. And the imagery has been very strong. And if you talk in terms of Coke and Pepsi, both have been very strongly advocating the kind of image that they are, the kind of message that they are projecting through their campaigns. If you see, Pepsi has been able to roll out campaigns where they're saying it is for the younger generation, and younger generation priorities change from time to time. So the brand has been able to keep up with that pace of doing it. You talk about Coke, which is an arch rival of Pepsi. They have been looking up to it as not necessarily for youth but also for the family. So they have an open happiness that they talk about. This product is usually consumed with family and so on and so forth. So that brings in a lot of differences in terms of imagery, though the product is the same, more or less the same. If you look into campaigns by Pop-Up Paperboard, where they try to go back to the childhood of creating a kind of a board which would run through, it builds in a lot of nostalgia into the imagery, right? So you'll find that most of the brands today use very strong brand imagery to convey the story, to convince or to persuade the consumers to create a positive vibe with the kind of brands that they are advocating. Activity platforms would be ones where you are talking about where you could integrate events, roadshows, or some kind of uh, a event where you can associate your brands with, apart from the usual campaign of how you're launching the brand. So most of the time, brands like Lakme know that they have found out to trigger what's in fad, or what's the fad fashion trend, which we have talked about if you remember in my classes. The fads, they have talked about what is in today, what's going out tomorrow. They've been able to dictate through some of their events which they conduct, like the Lakme Fashion Week, where they define what are the new trends which are coming. Of course, a lot of fashion designers showcase their product, and many of the garment manufacturers do get derived that okay, what should be the next style quotient, or should be the fashion quotient that they should bring in into their products to bring newness to the product, as well as maintaining the same level of quality and same kind of operational excellence. The third part which we look into in terms of the imagery is talking in terms of leveraging the brand equity is deepening the emotional connect and the building the brand advocates. We have to be very careful that today that the difference between a good brand and a great brand perhaps is the way the consumer, not only what the consumers respond to it, but also the kind of depth of relationship that we are trying to bring in terms of the emotional bonding. If you talk about, again, we go back to Apple's case, if you see their portfolio of offerings, everywhere you'll find that there is a deep understanding. And if you see, when we talked about things like coming out of the myopic vision that could come up in as a part of the marketing myopia situation, one of the greatest thing is that we need to really go back to the consumers, derive things from consumers. You will be able to sit out, brainstorm, maybe bring that into the branding. When you're building the brands, as to what kind of products can be showcased, what kind of products can be brought in and branded in the marketplace, and aligning your team efforts to understand the consumer connect. And when you are doing the resonate, when we're looking to the when you talk about the, so for example, the Apple experience or the LG experience or the Samsung experience, each one has to be unique. Each one has to spell out what is that depth of relationship that you're trying to endorse. In case of, let's say something like Starbucks, why everybody wants to go to Starbucks? The same person can go to various other cafes. Why are they frequenting that? Somewhere down the line, the kind of the layout, the service scape, the ambience, all play a very important role in creating a deeper connect with the consumer. Yes, of course, what we talk about the campaigns is that does matter, but end of the day, when it comes to in services, we talk about something called the moments of truth. That whenever the service is being delivered, am I getting the same kind of thing? So it may so happen that okay, I've heard of a particular hotel which gives best of the products, right? I will be swayed by that, and because of the word of mouth, I could go there. But at the end of the day, when I step into the hotel, how are these people delivering the services to me becomes a very critical part of engaging with me in terms of my assessment. Yeah, food could be great, but what about the kind of courtesies, the assurances, the behavior of the people who are delivering services to us? That becomes a very critical part of building the faith in that. So that is where now it can be customized. It can be it can be customized to the individual, personalized to the individual requirements. Today, you have seen that there are restaurants who cater to making dishes right in front of the diners. So there are dining outlets where they say that yes, they charge a bomb, they charge a premium price, but at the same time, they make things right. The lobster that you want is cooked right in front of you, and that is more authentic. That's more believable. That's more reassuring from the customer's point of view, and customers connect with that video. And they would obviously build the faith in that product, the trust in that product. And this is not only to be done once, it has to be done all the time, because in services or in products, in terms of the usage, if there is any kind of a glitch anywhere, it can spring a negative vibe with the customers, and that can be really detrimental to the brand's equity in the marketplace, and it will affect the image dimensions very badly. So what we need to, as a while building brands, we have to be very clear while defining our elements. We should be able to establish not only functional relationship but also the emotional bonds. But emotional bonds are the ones which will create the differences. So what emotional bonds have to be configured, have to be curated with respect to the brand, so that the brand engages with the consumers better. Every brand has a story, and brands like which have been heritage brands, which we call as brands which have been there for ages, but have lost, they lose their resilience as we go along. So because it is very important for brand managers to see that the brand life is extended and as much as possible, so as to leverage the brand as a strategic asset to the organization in the portfolio. Now, while you are while you are offering the brands, different milestones can be projected in terms of the narrative of the brand success. So when you weave the brand stories, when we talk about storytelling and branding, it should be, of course, it should be compelling, it should be more curiosity driven, it should create more inclusiveness, it should create more empathy with the people, and should be more involving and intriguing for the minds of the consumers to get excited about that. And not only that, but also look into various cues which can motivate and can take them from the kind of the way they evaluate the brand. So in terms of while you are narrating the story, the stories can be the brands have to touch upon various characters, the kind of people who are involved, the kind of situations that they are going through, the kind of the kind of offering that you are having, in what context it is being made. Everything can be taken up from our lives itself, right, and can be projected in a different way, and you can really connect with the customers and revitalize the brands. Heritage brands, which, for example, Bullet was relaunched in the marketplace when the bikes in the 350 category became very, very. So why are we talking about it? Why there is a resurgence suddenly of those heritage brands? Primarily because there was a brand image which was very strong, and that needed further a story which would say that the nostalgia that the brand had, build it into a kind of a narrative and told to the people, looking into the basic benefits what a current consumer looks for in other competitive brands, giving the same kind of feel, but having a retro look, having a kind of a traditional approach in order to differentiate. There are people who like to remain traditional, but yet at the same time be considered to be modern. So that fact has to be captured in the DNA while you are weaving the not only in terms of the brand elements, but also while you're telling the story. Of course, there are certain elements which needs to be maintained consistent. It should not change over a period of time. But there have been issues where brand elements have changed, not majorly, but in some ways where they're talking about rebranding and revitalizing the brand to strengthen the brand. One good example that comes to my mind is that of the Maggie. The way Maggie has been perceived as a 2-minute noodles, as it's a health proposition. We found that brand also faced a lot of problems during 2013 and 2012, right, where they were asked to remove their products in the marketplace for the monosodium glucamate. But Maggie, if you talk about the brand today, which was earlier thought that only one segment of the market would use it, that's the kids. today it is consumed by each and everyone. It has gone beyond age groups, beyond occupations. It was the best thing that you can get at snap of a finger. Perhaps this you will find that Maggie as it comes as a pact reply. So a campaign which comes to my mind in 2013, where they in 2012 rather, me and Mary Maggie, May or Mary Maggie, where me and my Maggie. So what did they try to do is they try to personalize the brand in the sense like how I create a new recipe with the usage of the brand, with the usage of this particular brand, and weave a story and share it in the with the world. And if that story is very compelling, is a very unique one, is a very unique experience, which is very delightful, that was captured in the campaign and it was promoted, and that caught the attention of many people, where they started tweaking the kind of usage that the brand could be put into. Multiple options came up in terms of how the brand Maggie is perceived by people from different quarters of life, and then how have they been able to use Maggie in their lives, something which is an inseparable part of their life. And not only that, but creating those small nuggets of stories which reinforce the faith of the brand, the faith of the people in that brand. But then when the monosodium glutamate issue came up, and the sales plummeted and things were taken off the shelf, there was no substitute for Maggie. Of course, after getting a clearance, again it has come back, and today again the same kind of status has been made. And today Maggie is on the warpath of convincing people on the plank of being healthy, being nutritionally good, as well as talking about wellness factors. They move their bases from millets to pastas to multiple formats in terms of ingredients, which can basically forward the kind of benefits that people are looking forward to in terms of engaging with the brand. So you will find that the brands, when they resonate with the customers, it basically gives you a lot of positive vibes with the customers, and you achieve something called what Keller says the brand resonance, which is the highest level of connectedness with the consumer groups. Another way of leveraging your brand would be of creating communities. There are companies, there are brands which have created such a fan following that they have created their own communities. They have their own rituals, they have their own value systems, they have their own lifestyles. Harley Davidson is one such example where, unfortunately, Harley Davidson left India, but not that it was not a successful thing, but they wanted that the kind of brand promise that they talk about, maybe that was a connect which they could be looking at. But if you see the Harley Owners Group, a website which talks about the brand community, you will find that people from who are associated with brand, they are functionally they're very different from the rest of the folks. They have very different kind of approach to life, a kind of a rebel kind of a thing, not necessarily conforming to what the society may be, conforming to the society dictates and everything. They always felt that feeling differentiated from others in terms of something their lifestyle talked about. So they had rituals. They're okay with that. They don't want people to come in large numbers. They want very happy with their numbers, who believe in them, who propagate those ideas among those people who believe in that particular thing. So it makes it more relevant. So brand communities, if you can build for your brands, it strengthens the equity status to a larger extent, and the branding becomes more stronger. And of course, in your portfolio, we always talk in terms of building brands which talk in terms of a robust portfolio of strong brands. So Keller's, when you talk about the brand resonance model, it looks into, first, there are steps in building the brand equity model, where you talk about the first step is talking about the brand identity, the recognition part. Then you're talking about the relevance of the brand, that the identity that you have created by creating certain kind of meaning with the people. Then it is getting accepted at a customer level, where they are trying to whip up the kind of judgment or feelings with the brand. And by using the brand more and more again, I've been convinced about the kind of the brand salient aspects which makes them more stronger. And ultimately, we are looking into a kind of a the brand resonance parameter, which is basically the last step, I would say, in terms of building a brand and making your brand equitable, brand equity very stronger by establishing a very strong connect with the consumers on the emotional front as well as on the functional front. Obviously, functional front is there, but more on the emotional front, so that you can leverage this going forward as the brand becomes more stronger in the minds of the customer and establishes a very strong linkages. Brand managers obviously look forward to achieving the resonance dimensions in a big way. With this, I come to the end of today's session. Thank you for the time.